This man was homeless, broke, and had no place to live, but today he's a multi-millionaire. This is the unbelievable true story of Chris Gardner. Chris Gardner grew up in Cleveland, Ohio. His father left his mother when he was just a baby, and they were very poor. Chris's mother had to work several jobs just to make ends meet, so Chris spent most of his childhood with his grandmother. When Chris was 12, his mother, who was an alcoholic at this point, left him and his brother with his aunt. Chris didn't have an easy life, but all of that changed when he met his high school sweetheart, Diana. After graduating, Chris joined the U.S. Navy and became a jet mechanic. He got to travel the world, including to Japan, where he picked up some Japanese phrases. He also bought a motorcycle and started enjoying his life. But everything changed when his girlfriend got pregnant. When Chris told her that he wanted a baby, she told him that she already was. So he took care of her throughout the pregnancy. But shortly after their son's birth, Diana left Chris, and he became a single dad. He was only 20 years old and had no idea what he was doing. Chris had always been a good mechanic, so it wasn't hard for him to find a job. But he still had to take care of his son, so he couldn't work too many hours. That's why he looked for daycare options. But those were extremely expensive, so he decided to move in with his friend. But soon enough, his friend kicked him out because he couldn't pay the rent. So Chris found a shelter for himself and his son. Life at the shelter wasn't easy. It was extremely cold outside, and there were some really bad people there. One time, someone even tried to steal Chris's government check right in front of him. That's why he started carrying his check in his shoe to the bank. And to make things worse, his son got sick. Chris didn't know what to do. He had no money or a car to get around. So he called the shelter manager for help, but she just told him that he should get out on the street and panhandle if he wanted some money. So that's what he did. Chris went to a busy intersection and stood there holding a sign that said, "Anything will help. God bless." People just stared at him and kept walking. It was cold, and he hadn't eaten anything that day. So he felt terrible. At that moment, Chris thought about ending his life. He sat down on a curb and took off his shoes. Then he heard a woman say, "Are you okay?" Chris told her what he was going through, and she gave him $5. Then she walked away. Chris took the money, put his shoes back on, and headed to a nearby McDonald's. He ordered the most expensive meal they had and ate everything. As Chris walked back home, he saw that same woman in front of him. She turned around and asked him if he was full. He said yes, and she smiled. Her name was Mary. She worked at a brokerage firm in San Francisco, and she asked Chris if he liked working with kids. Chris said that he loved his son more than anything, which made Mary smile. She invited Chris to come to her office the next Monday and see if he could get a job there. On Monday, Chris went to the interview. He didn't have a suit, so he wore his Navy uniform. Even though he didn't get the job, Mary gave him $20 and sent him home. Later that week, she called Chris and offered him a position as an intern at the bottom of the company. He would get paid $40 a week, and it was only for 6 months. But Chris accepted the offer without hesitation. At first, his colleagues didn't take him seriously because of his appearance. They called him names like clean-cut Fredo and threw food at him. But Chris didn't care. He worked harder than anyone else in the office. After 3 months, he was promoted and given a $35,000 annual salary. His colleagues liked him, and one of them even became his best friend. After 2 years, Chris's internship ended, but his boss offered him a partnership in the company. He had finally turned his life around. Today, Chris is worth over $1 million. He has a beautiful wife and 2 sons and still works at the company. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a thumbs up and subscribe for more content. Thank you for watching.